but they're important to know about. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Abraham in a little bit. But before we do that, I want you to go back to your reading. And I have a wonderful little, this was actually supposed to go on the back of your study guide. I have a wonderful little Venn diagram comparing and contrasting Abraham and Moses. I've given you 1 point already of comparison, or of difference, I should say, to start filling out your Venn diagram. But there are others. Read through your chapter, find the other things to compare and contrast them. Many there are. The section you just read. The pencil on the thing over there with the laptop. How many of you guys finished the Venn diagram? Alright. So what are some of the things that we found that they have that are similar? What are some of the things that they have in common? What do they both do? Tyler.
They both traveled to Canaan.
Okay, they both traveled to Canaan. Sure. Yeah.
They both left the place.
They both left their homes. Also true.
They both listened to God.
They both listened to God.
They both were told by God to take people out.
Okay. They're both given a message by God to go to take their people somewhere. Nice. Okay. They do both appear in the Bible. Yes. Okay. Anything else? They're both leaders. Kendall. Okay, they both led the Hebrews on a long journey. Okay, they're both Hebrew. What are some of the things that they have? What are some of the differences that they have? What are some of the things that make them different? That they did differently or make them different? Vera?
Moses brought the Hebrews to Canaan on a journey called the Exodus, which is actually a chapter name in the Christian Bible.
Okay. Exodus. They went on an exodus, which is it means to exit someplace, to leave someplace, to evacuate, and they left that place in the exodus. Yes.
God gave Moses the stone tablets.
Okay. Okay.
So, Moses is younger than Abraham.
Okay.
Abraham led his family out west and then made them.
Okay. Abraham sort of started with a smaller group. It was just sort of him and his family, much smaller group. Whereas Moses started with a much larger group. He had the large Hebrew nation that was already in Egypt, already established, a huge group of people. So they both made long trips. They both journeyed, did all these different things. They had much larger groups. They traveled from different places. They had sort of different journeys. Moses' journey is said to have lasted for over 40 years. Over 40 years. And he never actually made it to the place that he was going to. He ended up having to have somebody else lead his people the rest of the way. He never made it all the way there. Abraham actually did. Why is it important that we talk about these two figures? Why is it important that we talk about these two figures? Zach?
Pretty much were both led by God, spoke to God.
Okay. Okay, they're both important to the Hebrew history. Why are they important to us? Or at least, let's focus on one. Why is Abraham important to us? Does anybody know? Why he's important to us? His descendants were who? Okay. The Hebrews. Here's something that may not be in your textbook. I didn't see it there. Abraham had two sons. Two sons. Ishmael and Isaac. Ishmael, the older son, was a half-brother of Isaac. Ishmael was sent away. Him and his mother were sent away. Abraham's wife didn't like them around, and eventually, after Isaac was born, she sent them away, and they had to leave. Ishmael became the father, or is said to be the father of the Arabian people, the people that later inhabited most of what is now Saudi Arabia, parts of Iraq, and in that lower other part of the Middle East, the Arabian Peninsula, on the more eastern side off of the Mediterranean. Isaac, his other son, Abraham's other son, became the head of the Hebrew people. So you have two great populations of people, the Arabian people and the Hebrew people. Two great populations of people. The Arabian people would later mostly become Muslim. In fact, the father of Islam, Muhammad, comes out of those Arabian people and connects himself to Ishmael and his people. So what you end up having is you have, off of these two groups of people, you have Islam who grows up, and Judaism, which also comes out of this one person, this one central figure. And as you travel later on in the story, out of Judaism, you have Jesus, who becomes the founder of the Christian religion. So out of this one group of people, this one main person, Abraham has two sons. And out of those two sons, you have the three major monotheistic religions in the world: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And those three different religions are all very, very important. They're all very influential in that region still today. They don't always get along. But they all relate back to one central, and they identify with one central figure, and that's Abraham. It's the one person that ties all those three religions together. And so you have one person, Abraham, the founder of the Hebrew people, who also has connections to the other two major monotheistic religions in the world. Okay? Very, very important figure. Very important figure in history. It's why he's tied in. It's why they're tied in, because those different religions would have effects on the whole rest of the world. Their teachings, the way that they did things, as we go along, some of their influences, not just in the field of religion, but also in the fields of science and history, math, architecture, agriculture, all those different things tie in. They come from the studies and the influence of those different religions, those different scholars that come out of those different religions. Philosophy, theology, all those things are affected. Literature, all those things are affected. And because of this one guy, really, really long ago, everybody can connect it back to that one guy. So he's important. Very important person. Tomorrow, we're going to start delving into a little bit more of the culture of Judaism and the beliefs that their belief systems, some of the things that they've done. And then we're going to move into some more of their accomplishments later on. Okay. But I do want to kind of go back and look at really quickly. I want to look at our study guides and kind of go through the questions and the key terms in there, so you're all good with the information that's there. So if you want to take out your study guides and go through that for the last couple minutes, we will do that. Alright, our first key term, Judaism. What is Judaism? What is Judaism? Jack, what is it?
The Hebrew religion.
Okay, can you tell me more about it? Can anybody tell me more about it than just that it's the Hebrew religion? How's it different from the other religions we've studied so far this year? Kendall. It's monotheistic, which means what?
They only believe in one God.
Only believe in one God. There is one God and only one God in monotheism. In Judaism, there is only one God. In some of the other religions we've studied before, there are many gods, multiple gods. Here we only have one. It's the first one that came along that only had one. Abraham. Who was Abraham? Who was he? Anijah? Trace their what in religion? Ancestry in religion. Correct. So it's the biblical figure who ancient Hebrews can trace their ancestry and their religion. They trace it back to Abraham. Let's see here. Moses. Who's Moses? Vera, who's Moses?
A man told by God to lead the Hebrews out of Egypt to Canaan on a journey called the Exodus.
Okay. Excellent. Pretty good. Pretty sufficient. What is the Exodus? Zach, what's the Exodus?
The journey to Egypt.
The journey to Egypt. The journey not to Egypt, but out of Egypt. Away from Egypt. Exodus, whenever you think of Exodus, think of exit. They're exiting, they are leaving, they are getting away, they are fleeing. There's an exodus. They are leaving. Let's see here. 10 Commandments. 10 Commandments, Courtney.
Code of moral laws.
A code of moral laws. The 10 Commandments are actually really interesting. There's always been a huge fight. One of the things that we as Americans strongly believe in is a separation of church and government. It's not necessarily stated directly in our Constitution, but it is something that we believe in. And the 10 Commandments used to be very popular. I was actually just reading an article a little while ago about an Oklahoma City courthouse that has the 10 Commandments out front. And people have tried to remove them because they say that it interferes with separation of church and state. And another group, a satanic church, has decided that if they can have the 10 Commandments out front, then the satanic church should also be able to have a statue of Satan out front. And so they're lobbying to get that done. Now, under the rules of free speech and separation of church and state, should they be able to do that? I don't know. Maybe. If you can have the 10 Commandments, why can't you have all sides pointed out, right? I don't know. But that is something that they are fighting about right now. But the 10 Commandments are basically, it's a really good set of moral codes. If you pay attention to most of it, it's a pretty good set of moral codes. Don't murder, don't steal, don't commit adultery, don't be jealous of other people's stuff. Yeah, it's pretty. Listen to your father, honor your father and mother, listen to your parents. All pretty good stuff in there. David. Who is David? Who was David? Okay, he was a man who was declared an outlaw. He was the right hand of the former King Saul, and later was declared an outlaw. And then he won a number of battles, and after Saul died, he was declared king. And he became king of Israel for a while. What else?
Before he was king in Hell and battles, he was a shepherd boy, and he defeated the steam giant named Goliath.
Yep, which is where you get the phrase, the story of David and Goliath. You hear this all the time. Like sports. They love to talk about it in sports. When you have some like little small team that's not going to do very good and they're going up some big powerhouse team, they always talk about, oh, it's the battle of David and Goliath all over again. Which you got the little person versus the really, really big person. And sometimes the little person wins. And in this case, that's what happened with him. And we get that saying from there. Solomon. Who is Solomon? Who is Solomon? Riley, who is Solomon? In 1965? BC. Okay. He was David's son. He took the throne in 165. 965? 1965. What else do we know about him? Anything else? Do we know anything else about Solomon? Kendall. Okay, he was a strong leader. He was liked by a number of his people. Kendall, what else? He built the first temple in Jerusalem. Yes, that was one of his major accomplishments. Elijah, what else do we know? He did. He formed alliances through nearby kingdoms. One of the things that we know about Solomon, or that they say about Solomon, is he was the wisest man in the world at the time. He was considered extremely wise. People would go to Solomon to ask all kinds of questions, to have him solve riddles, and he could. And he gave some very interesting answers. One of my absolute favorite stories that demonstrates the wisdom of Solomon is two women came to Solomon with a small child, with a baby, and they both claimed that the baby was theirs. So this is my child. And they had been fighting over it, and one had tried to take the baby from the other one. And they asked Solomon to determine which was the actual mother. Does anybody know what he did? Braden?
He said cut the baby in half.
He said, cut the baby in half, and then each will get half of a baby. And the one woman said, okay, that sounds fine with me. And the other one says, no, don't cut it in half, she can have it. Guess which one was the mother?
What is that?
Yeah, the one who said no. And so Solomon said, obviously you care about this child more than you care about winning the argument. You are the mother, you get the baby. There's another story, the Queen of Sheba, who was also a very tricky woman who liked riddles. She came to see Solomon, and she set up a field of roses, and one of them was fake, and he had to figure out which one was fake. And he looked at it for probably about an hour, and he pointed to the exact rose in the field of roses, and said, that's the fake one. And she said, how did you know? He said, it's the only one the bee wouldn't land on. So he watched, he was observant, he paid attention to different things. He's a very wise person. Our next word. Emily, where did you move to? Where's Emily? There, oh, there you go. Diaspora. What is it? Courtney, what is it?
The scattering of the Jews outside of Israel and Judah diaspora.
Okay. The scattering of the Jews outside of Israel and Judah after, when was it after? Anybody else? Who knows? When were they scattered? What was it that caused them to be scattered? Why were they scattered? They had their own nation. Why would they just all of a sudden leave and go all over the place? Tyler, why?
Oh, why? I was just supposed to go
35,000? When was it?
It was like either, there's two dates here, there's like the 330s BC.
Okay. Okay. Why? But why? Why were they scattered? Does anybody know why they were scattered? It was in the reading. I read it. Why was it? Why were they scattered? It wasn't because of the Exodus. It wasn't because of the Exodus. Tyler.
The Chaldeans came to Jerusalem and like took it over.
Okay.
And they like they burned down the second church.
The Chaldeans came and took it over. They burned down the first temple, and they took a large number of the Hebrew people as slaves, and they took them back to Babylon. And the people stayed in Babylon. Now, eventually, the Persians took over. And one of the cool things is the king, there's actually a number of kings in a line that share the same name, but the name is Xerxes. It was the king of the Persians. Has anybody ever seen the movie 300? What's the name of the Persian king in that movie? Xerxes. It was actually the same family that was dealing with the Hebrews in the time of Babylon and letting them go back, that was also trying to conquer the Greeks. So you start to see these sort of like connections. And what you see is when the Greeks were or the Hebrews were finally allowed to go back to their homes in Jerusalem, some of them didn't go. Some of them decided, you know what, it's pretty nice here in Persia. It's pretty nice. We got good food. Everything's taken care of. Why would I want to go back and start everything new? I'm going to stay here. So they stayed there, and they started to spread out and move people around. And it started with the return to Jerusalem, but also after the Romans sacked Jerusalem again and destroyed the Second Temple. It scattered the people again. So you have this displacement, scatter. You guys know you still have like 2 minutes left, right? Still, it's not ringing in. Now it's like 5. I can't stand it when you guys are getting ready before the What?
Brandon.
You know, don't say I never gave you anything. Yeah. Do Persians have anything to do with Persian cats? Yes, they come from the same area. Why?